If you don't know what your success metric is now, how do you know if you're winning with the AI implementation? Find all of the low value but necessary activity, things that burn your efficiency up. Delegate that to AI. Allow your humans for now to do the high value activity. When you get to the end of that and you get it to good enough, you've found your process where it's as good as a human, you're going to find out that as your business changes, the ability for this thing to flex and change with your business is unprecedented.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to everyone watching and listening today?
Adopt a person plus AI strategy.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Athin J. Schwartz. He's the Chief Innovation Officer of AMCS Group, North America, a global leader in sustainable cloud technology. And with 35 plus years of experience in resource intensive industries like waste, recycling, natural gas, he drives digital transformation through AI and data science. And formerly AMCS's Chief Enterprise Architect, Athin is also a adjunct professor at Jacksonville University, mentoring future IT leaders, and is a Forbes Technology Council member and sought after speaker. He advocates for AI-driven sustainability and ethical tech. And his best-selling book, People, Places, and Things, cements his expertise in seamless ERP implementation. Welcome, Athin, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Nathan, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. I'm sure it's going to be amazing and impactful for everybody watching and listening today. And you are a successful entrepreneur and leader. So for those people who don't know who you are, introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Yeah, my journey started at age 16. So I don't know what the age category of your audience is, but I started back in the days before the internet, before Google, on dial-up bulletin board systems. And it was just text on a screen. And I felt that wasn't nearly good enough. And before the age of high graphics, most people had 16 colors on their monitor, EGA. I was convinced there was a way to do graphics over the line. And we created a protocol called DDoFX, the Digital Dynamics Online Effects Language, that bulletin board systems could send back and forth to do graphics. And we built a bunch of games and sold it. And that was Low-Cath Industries back in the 80s. And that shot up because no one had seen that before. It was kind of revolutionary at the time. The internet came and put a bullet in the head of bulletin board systems, as you can imagine. Why would you pay for a long distance call when you can get to everything in the world for free? And moved to the internet for a while, tried to do some gaming there, and then fell sort of bass backwards into the business world, realizing that business applications didn't carry with them any of the user experience benefits that you see ardently in the gaming world. If you click a button or manipulate the joystick and you've got more than 200 millisecond delay, that entire product is rejected. And yet in the business world, we commonly accepted that I would hit a button and that thing would just whirligig for up to 30 seconds. Why was that? So once I sort of left the gaming industry and brought that kind of demand into the business world, that really kind of shot it off. And I got an opportunity within a small company in Gainesville where I was getting a different degree at that time called Infinite Energy. And that got me into the natural gas. And that was sort of the wealth industries. And, going back to Cath Industries, pulling a bag full of orders out of my PO box, like 3 big Santa bags, got me hooked on value creation. When I saw the opportunity to apply that at an enterprise scale, you know, hundreds of thousands of customers, that just amplified my hunger to be part of that. And ever since, I've never left what I call the wealth industries, those industries that are taking raw materials and producing them into a service or good. So that led me into the gas, became a full partner there, sold my interest in Infinite Energy, fell into the wood and paper industry with Georgia Pacific and Rayonier and Smurfit Stone, Jefferson Stone at the time. We built very similar enterprise systems that ran their entire business end to end. That ran for about a decade as they were moving into recycle, secondary fiber, and that kind of dovetailed into the recycling industry where I went over to Desert Micro, Desert Micro was going across the board, a variety of all of those, which was a small waste software provider for the small and mid-market. We had only one or two enterprise customers at the time, and we were moving into SaaS, which got the eye of AMCS. AMCS acquired Desert Micro, and they got me with that, and I've never looked back since. So I've been moving across just about every role that AMCS has to offer. I'm probably going to retire as a janitor here at AMCS, which I'm perfectly happy to do. And it has just been an incredible journey to see, because it's the only company that sees the vision, which is the connective tissue between people, places, and things. Essentially, the gas company can derive value from a landfill that is producing or decomposing material, which ties back into the waste. And the paper company, as they digest fiber, it creates terpenes, which goes into various flavors and fuel additives for chemical companies. You start to zoom in at a very high level, and you see all of these industries are either feeder stock to one or a service provider to the other for waste management. And they're all very connected. And the benefit is if you kind of just gloss over the materials, you're always either buying or charging somebody for something that you have to logistically move, process into a new form, and either dispose or sell. It's people, places, and things. And it's just variations along that theme and the infinite variety with which businesses apply their specific craft to that industry. So it doesn't matter they're all in the same industry. None of them operate the same way. So that's the excitement level, is the innovations within those businesses, to see opportunities at connective tissue to use and find efficiencies and to create a grander opportunity for people to make better money, make it more efficient. I think we're standing at the precipice for the first time in my life to actually be able to achieve something close to net zero, to be able to take that reverse logistics problem of that finished good out in the market, bring it back in, and then be able to put it back into the supply chain and take it back out. And you're only going to see those by looking at all of those industries and how they connect into each other. That's where the benefit's going to come from. So that's my excitement level. People go, what gets you out of bed in the morning is, I think there's a certain passion in being able to say, what I do every day is contributing to a better world. Right? There's not a lot of jobs that can pinpoint that. But I know the stuff that we're building at AMCS are just positively benefiting every single person. We were talking before the show about route optimization. When you look at optimizing a route, you're making money for your customer because they're utilizing resources less, but we're pumping less toxins into the environment because we're burning less fuel, right? We're able to predict the maintenance on a truck. So I'm not introducing used oil into the environment as often if I can go through the year with fewer maintenance cycles because I know how the engine's working. I can take an oil sample, and using AI today, I can really find out, do I need to do this maintenance cycle? Should I sell this engine? Should I sell the truck maybe? Maybe it's time to, divest from the truck. So, and each one of those verticals in themselves is powerful, right? On how they impact the bottom line. But once you tie them together, their multiplicative effect across your enterprise is phenomenal. And I think it's just an area that a lot of businesses over the last few decades haven't looked. We've looked really good at the verticals and try to go as deep as we can. But it's that handoff from one process step to the next that we haven't had a chance to look at because there's just too much data. And now we have the tools to really dig in and find better efficiencies across that data. Look at things from a variety of different models is now easy. I can ask an agent to digest terabytes of data and give me a recommendation around it, right? And we've never had that ability to do that before. And building and putting those tools in the hands of our customers is really a passion of mine.
Yeah, amazing. What a story. I love that background. I can see a few little similarities. I might be slightly younger than you, but I definitely learned. I remember learning off computers at a very young age from my parents, from Windows 3.1, and the blue
Mm.
screen and dial-up internet, the joys when someone used to pick up the phone and then the internet would cut out. How we've moved on from that quite well. And then yeah,
Yeah, I would say so.
and yeah, then yeah, dropping out of high school, and I got into the waste management industry. So I've been in almost 20 years, and yeah, it's a fascinating space, and I think a lot of people don't realize that all those benefits there, and like even
Yeah.
bioreactors let off heat in something here in Australia, where then the heat is going into a fish farm to make fish, and that's being sold to the local market.
There
You
you
know what I
go.
mean? So
There
there's
you go.
all these things between companies, which is so interesting. And it's always going to be there, and we need to do the right thing. So I think you guys, creating the software that supports that, is so powerful. And now, like you said, with AI, of what it can actually do, because when you used to run all these things, you'd run it all manually, it'd take you weeks to implement it, all this
Oh yeah.
stuff. Now it can take minutes or hours at a maximum, and it becomes a different ball game. So I love this, and I think it's going to be very very powerful. So let's talk about AI now, right? And I know there's an element of, like, I guess, AI powered digitalization. So we've got to get more digital. We've got to go, how can we integrate this, right? Leverage it, AI to modernize this, because I think, like you said, efficiencies are a big thing, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, I
Right.
just need to make more money if I can. It's like, well, if you just make yourself more efficient, you make more money. You don't have to get more clients in that way. So how do you see,
There's two
businesses
sides to every
leveraging it?
formula, right?
Yeah, exactly. So how are you seeing, businesses really leverage that to modernize it and really improve that efficiency? Yeah.
Look, the tech is there. From a technology standpoint, it's there and very capable. Where we're seeing the friction, at least over the last year, is in the adoption side. It's how to apply this tech appropriately within your business model is where I think a lot of folks are struggling. They either go too big, they just want to talk to the thing and have it handle everything, and it isn't going to do that well without a steward. I'm a strong believer in a person plus AI strategy. And what I consult to our customers is map your process. It always is an as is and a to be, right? What do you have now? Because if you're just targeting a to be and you don't know what you have, you don't know what the journey is, and now you've got risk. So map what you're doing today, whether you like it or not. And then find all of the low value but necessary activity, things that burn your efficiency up. Delegate that to AI. Allow your humans for now to do the high value activities. An example of this could just be like it within your customer success, anywhere that you're dealing or touching customers, maximize that amount of time that your humans can do that. And areas where there's necessity to do work, but it doesn't have that same high value, like in the customer success area, let AI do that. So I call a customer and I'm letting them know how much I appreciate them and love them for being a customer. And we have the conversation and they feel very good. But after that, I now need to document what was said, what was talked about, put it in an email, send it out, get concurrence. That's the low value but necessary work that I can delegate to an AI. It can listen to the conversation, it can extract a transcript, it can pull out all the high value items. I can train it to talk and sound like me. I can give it a template of an email I've sent, or 10 or 100, and say, this is how I communicate with my customers. Keep your messages in this same tone and find those. So now, just by not having to spend that 20 to 30 minutes after every call, I can go immediately into the next customer call. And then I've got this agent, this sort of coworker of mine that's doing the low value work for me. And just you can apply that across the board to any and all processes. So just dissect your processes, find those areas. AI is really good at doing those types of things. But to give it the entire work process, to say, I want you to call my customer, talk to them, make it feel empathic like I would, you're not going to win that game. It's not going to work yet. There's a lot of old people like me that would rather talk to another human. It's not going to enjoy. I think my youngest son would prefer to talk to the robot than another human being. So that transition's coming, but we're not there yet, right? So that's sort of the advice I would have is as you're applying AI, it's not it's not any different than any other digital transformation from an adoption perspective, from an OCM or organizational change management. You're still going to have to go through those same rigors of change. So don't think that you don't have to do that. You do. And then measure. If you don't know what your success metric is now, how do you know if you're winning with the AI implementation, right? So understand your process, understand what success is going to look like, figure out what your metric's going to be before you start, and then measure it as it goes. And you're going to tweak it. The reason why that's important is you've got two lines of thought. You've got the purists, and I think you mentioned already, data is a big challenge to make these agents work effectively. I would say the purists say, get your data in order across the board. Go fix, get everything in canonical areas, get it all indexed and make it beautiful for AI, and then go to AI. You'll never get there. You'll never achieve that. The better option is to target a solution and incrementally improve it because nothing's better at exposing the gaps of your data than trying to do something and failing fast at it. And this agent's not working. Why? Oh, well, we didn't tell it this, or it doesn't have access to the customer's history. So now you are smartly going after your data, putting it in canonical order, getting it all indexed. And look, I'm going to tell you, there are experts in the world that are adamantly against that strategy, right? So I'm sort of an outlier in this, but I think hitting that wall, looking at the wall and finding out why I can't get through it, and then busting through it gives you a more microscopic way to attack your data problem. I've been in this game long enough to realize that there is no customer, not one, even the one that thinks they've nailed their data hasn't, because there are just things that happen in your business that you don't see. No matter how much you think you've mapped everything, the second you've mapped it, it's already degrading. It's already entropy is kicking in already. So test your agent, find out what's missing, give the agent what it needs, measure it, measure it, measure it until you reach at least as good as the human. Perfection is the other killer for AI. It's not the computer of our age where I'm expecting it to iterate over a process and do it perfectly every single time. That's not really what AI does well. But as long as it makes as few mistakes or less than the human counterpart, that's a win.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. It's so true. And it reminds me like the old school way, right? Is like when you create a process, for like a procedure for someone to follow. And the only way to really test it was to give it to somebody else and go, hey, can you follow this? And all of a sudden they get
Yeah,
to step five and go, hey, this is not working or whatever like that. It's like, well, you didn't really do the procedure properly. It's the same thing, basically,
it
right?
is.
You're handing it
It's
over.
exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not different. And that is another fallacy is that underpin is people are attacking AI like it's different. It's a digital transformation. So a lot of those same lessons learned, exactly what you just talked about on this processes, apply, right? Run it, see what works and doesn't work. There are things that we assume just naturally. Me and you were talking. We have a shared background in some of the earlier tech, and we can talk about that in a way because I know that you know it and we'll get past it. That's context, right? That I understand the intent, you understand the intent. You can't just assume anyone that's ever taken someone else's documentation and tried to do that thing with that documentation knows very well that you're going to hit a spot where it's referencing something on the screen and you don't even know how you got there. So they're talking about a screen you're not looking at, and now I don't know how to get there and I'm lost. Imagine that's the same thing for the AI, right? So you have to test drive it. You have to see the where the gaps are and then fill them. You'll get there, but expect it to be an iterative improvement process and set your goals. And I think you would be surprised how much easier and better this is. It's that assumption it's a computer, ergo it works. So it should work consistently every single time that I think is throwing people off. It is a machine, but I would treat it closer to onboarding a new employee from a process perspective to help you adopt this tech, as opposed to I bought something that does this thing over and over again perfectly to this T, and this is how rigid that is. The value of these is they're not rigid and you're able to adapt and expand the process. So lean into that flexibility because the better part of this, and this is the win at the end that I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs are really focusing on, is while it feels painful now to go through this because that flexibility keeps getting in the way, you just needed to do this thing right now. But when you get to the end of that and you get it to good enough, you've found your process where it's as good as a human, you're going to find out that as your business changes, the ability for this thing to flex and change with your business is unprecedented. You go back 4 years where you just have software and it's got config switches, it's got levers, you can pull left and right. This becomes the entire lane that you're allowed to live in. So if you want to do something outside that, You're talking to the vendor, you're on roadmap, you're trying to evolve the product, as opposed to I now have a very flexible system, an agentic system that I can just give a slightly better direction to, and it moves. So just imagine a human being operating at those speeds is kind of where we're at with the tech today. But you have to have the same kind of compassion you would with a human being. I'm not going to expect you to be 100% perfect every time. I would never do that. You should never do that to another human being. I'm not saying treat this thing like a human, but the fallacies are the same. So the tolerances are the same, but the flexibility is also there. And it's a lot more efficient at running things at high scale if you can work within those variances. That's it. So if you just keep those four baselines in mind, your AI initiative should be way more successful. There's a whole host of anti-patterns that we train our customers on to look for, right? Because you can get in early indicator and it looks like a great thing to do. And then you realize, well, there's when that hockey stick never comes up, right? Because the cost of doing this thing outweighs the 1% time it actually delivers money. While interesting, isn't a great use case for this tech. So sit down with your use case design framework and really understand ahead of doing it what you should do. And we're finding more and more as people are publishing this, like at AMCS, we've built a use case design framework. So every time we discover an anti-pattern, it goes into the bucket. Here's how you identify it. Here's when it goes off the rails. Here's why it's not good for these types of things. That is a great filter for when you're trying to apply AI across your business. And that would save you a lot of heartache.
Yeah, no, I love that. So true. And yeah, it's such a great point that you mentioned around like just doing it, right? Because I think so many people build things, but they don't know how long it's going to take and like what's the benefit. Whereas if you build it first and you learn as you go, it just happens quicker. It's almost like a small medium business is more mobile, like a speedboat, right? And they go, oh, we can move this direction, whatever. We're a larger organization. Sometimes there are too many management levels and all these things. It
Yeah.
can take a long time to make a decision and you could miss out on opportunity, right? That's there. So I think it's about
Yeah.
capitalizing on the opportunity. And the more data you have in it, which is about time. So, if you start now, it's going to have more data, and the smarter it gets, right? Almost like a very smart toddler, if you think about it like
Yeah,
that.
that's exactly. And it'll tell you very easily what you're missing. So rather than having to focus on the entire data pipeline of the business, you can just focus on the things that it is unable to make decisions on. Oh, it didn't know to do this because it didn't have access to the customer history. Let's get it that. Oh, it could make this decision because it didn't have access to our price, our current prices. It had this stale price or whatever. Let's make sure that it has access to this. Those exposures are really amplified during the testing cycle. So we're almost flipping agile development on its head a little bit. And I can see why there's resistance to it because for the last 2 to 3 decades, we've been beating everyone over the head and shoulders. Design, 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 test, design before you put it in the wild. And now we're going, forget all that. Just throw yourself at it. Let's get going on this. Let's see where the problems are. And there's been so many, I would say, warning signs or just use cases that describe how horrible that is in traditional development, right? Because if you just take the hill and you run a development and you put it in the wild, why that's bad with human development is the cost of the iteration. But with AI, the iteration cost is so low, right? You can iterate and evolve in real time. You can learn what's missing and then expose it. And that makes you more efficient. So you're focusing on only the things it needs to do its job rather than trying to boil the ocean. So it's, again, like I said, I think I'm a minority in this. The data purists say get your data house and then you have infinite creation. I think we'll have to wait and see who wins, but I can tell you this model of pick one, run at it, look at the use case design framework, make sure it passes the filter. If it does, it's just a matter of getting the data for that thing in order. That is a lot more tolerable to boards, C-level executives, because they see progress, they see returns on investment, rather than waiting a year or two to get your data house in order and then all the return on investment. That's just too much risk for most businesses to take.
Yeah. And I love those points. And I think the one thing to harp on a little bit more around the efficiency side is that if you get them to do these little tasks that are lower, level tasks, it frees up the time, right, for your people. So I agree,
Right.
it should be about having people as well, like running the AI and doing things in the business. It's not necessarily about like just sacking everybody. It's going, well,
Or
what if we can make our business double as efficient? We could have twice as many customers with the same employees, right? Like that's the
the
possibility.
person plus AI strategy is exactly that. You've described it really well. It's when you're making a decision around an AI use case, it needs to support itself for the virtue of that use case. In other words, why am I doing this? Let's go back to the customer success one. That's something everyone can kind of grasp is I've got a team that's making sure my customers don't leave me to my competitors, right? If you have maybe say 3 to 5% churn on average a year, and this cuts it in half because your people are now able to touch double the number of customers in the same amount of time, that's what it paid for. Now, at the end of that game, and I want to make sure I'm stating this clearly, you have every right to right size your business. So if you get to the end of that journey and you've trained a whole bunch of people on how to use AI, but for some reason you can't use them elsewhere in your business to grow your business and revenue, then okay, you've empowered these employees with a skill they can take anywhere. So I'm not telling you you're not allowed to right size your business, but I think it's the wrong approach to say I'm doing AI for the purpose of downsizing my people, because that has not been hugely successful. It has a short-term success, then it starts to wobble, then it starts to fail, because the thing that I think is missing in that strategy is the rule of entropy. The second you put this AI in business and it's operating, and I said before, take it, the approach you should take be like you bringing on a new employee. All right. Your business is going to change and evolve over time. It just will. What you're doing today, 3 months from now, you're going to be doing it a little bit different. A new compliance comes in, new roads get, things are going to change. That employee kind of gets those changes organically by being in the office. The AI doesn't have that benefit. So its efficiency will start to drop unless you maintain it. So you're going to have to kind of figure out an orientation program that I'm checking in every 2 months, every 3 months, depending on what the rate of change in your business is. You're going to have to go back and touch each one of these agents. This is not a fire and forget. They need management, kind of like people need management to grow and evolve. So you're going to have to keep that in play. If you go with the process of I'm downsizing a bunch of people and I've let them all go and I'm now maximizing the people I have for other work, I've lost the stewardship, right? I like to look at them as co-workers, that each one of my workers is going to come with a co-worker that makes my worker maximally efficient. So now that co-worker is like the manager for this agent. And so as the business rules are changing or things, I can be informing that agent of here's a new change, here's something we need to do. Let me evolve the process. And they steward the process in addition to reacting to the agent's mistakes. It's not just cleanup. It's being a good steward for your coworker all the way through. And that's where people are falling down. You saw Google had laid off a bunch of people. Now they're hiring them all back at a premium of plus 30%. That's a negative outcome, I would say that you had those folks. It's utilization of your human resources at the end of the game when you've accounted for what it's doing and you know that you have that stewardship, that maintenance of that product, that agent, whatever that use case is in place. I'm not going to tell you you can't right size your business if you can't find growth opportunities. By all means, that's a business decision. People do it all the time. But that should never be the reason you're implementing the agent. Find some other value for that agent other than just downsizing the number of people. You will be a lot happier at the end. You can still right size if it works, but if you can find that value statement that doesn't involve downsizing people, your opportunity for success goes from a 95% fail to a 5% fail. That's the flip. It's that dramatic in its use case. So the fact that this hasn't caught on yet and businesses haven't, because I'm still seeing businesses go and do AI and get rid of your number one cost, which are people. Okay, yeah, maybe at the end. Let's make sure it works. Let's get it in. Let's make sure it's valuable. And let me see if there's anywhere else I can reapply this capital resource, human capital, to growing my business because I now have an infinite game. Why would I just grow to 20% when I have tools that take the same number of people and I can grow 6x, 7x? I don't have to add people, right? But I now have a tool that amplifies my people capital to a level that has never been seen before.
That's right. And then all you do is you increase that marketing sales process, and all of a sudden, boom, right? It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, massive
yeah,
potential.
exactly. There would be market opportunities that you've never chased because in the old model, the cost of entry was too high. Now the cost of entry is so low. Run at it and see if you can get it. But I would just strongly recommend you downsize your people at the end of that journey. It's all there. You've grown as big as you can or want. And now, and what you should instill in your people is what you get out of this, even if at the end there's a cut, is I've trained you to be useful for other businesses because you now know how to orchestrate agents. You know how to build them. You understand the value of data. You understand how to clean up. So it becomes a fair trade at the end if there's some downsizing or right sizing that has to be done. But I would go that should be a provider of last resort, in my humble opinion. Because I don't see any examples of success. They're short term, like people who just did it, look, see what we did. But okay, come back to me in 8 months. Tell me if you're still doing it. I don't think you will be.
Yeah. No, I love it. So, so true. Completely agree on that side. And like obviously there's a lot of systems people have, right? And you guys at AMCS have the, very high quality ERP systems, enterprise resource, systems there that if people don't understand what that means, but the CRMs, there's accounting systems and
Good.
stuff, right? That are all part of that. And we're implementing AI, I guess there's a couple of things that might come up for people is around maybe ethics and security, I think are maybe two things here, right? About like
Yeah.
how we're doing it responsibly and how are we securing what we're doing so that we're not creating a problem, in the future with how it's interacting and things like that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, yeah, around that too.
So at AMCS, we started their journey there. Before we built anything regarding AI, we built an AI GRIF, which is a governance and risk management framework. And it was based largely on the EU AI Act, NIST, and a variety of other organizations around the world coming together and putting their thoughts around what is the moral, ethical way to apply AI and get that framework together. Now, the good news for our customers is that comes with our product. So we grant that, and it's a governance and risk framework, so you can use it for anything. And we're okay with that, right? We want to empower our customers. But if you don't have no-fly zones and boundaries and an understanding of risk, you're going to make a tragic error. Let me just give you a simple example. In the United States, California has one of the most stringent no solicitation rules. In other words, before you fire off something that's asking for money or even trying to promote, you better have an opt-in list. Sometimes it's a double opt-in list before you fire that. One of the most common agents that are being built is this customer contact, where it takes the data and it's automating emails and it's making it look more human. But you could end up causing yourself several $1,000s per incident if there's a large complaint on that. Have your risk and governance framework in place. Understand, just define what are we using AI for in this company? What are the morals and ethics with which we are going to guide every decision? Build that framework. There's tons of examples. We've built one that is very digestible within the resource intensive industries. And we've remodeled it per se so that it speaks to those industries, making it easier to understand and adapt. That sets the tone for everything. So now when an employee comes to you and says, I want to build an agent that does this, you now have something to hold it up to and go, are there biases in the engine you're using? Is there going to be a challenge or a problem with the way that this thing interacts with my customers? Is there going to be a potential risk for me on exposing data it ought not expose? How are we going to manage those? If you don't know the risks and then you take my previous advice of run at it first and then find where the breaks are, you're going to have a very tumultuous journey because you are going to run at something that does not feel bad, and then you're going to discover it is bad. Just I can't tell you who these folks are, but there was an instance where there was a training of a model because they wanted to build something that could generate reports. So they trained it on the data model and they asked it questions and it was able to pull up and do reporting. And that's a very common ask. And that thing went almost all the way through to final release before there was a question around the length of an address field. So they asked this thing, well, what's the width of the address field? And it told it to them. Oh, well, what's the name of the column in the database? And it told it to them. And then everyone kind of the stomach sunk and going, is this thing going to help a hacker do a denial, some kind of a SQL injection attack? Because it's now describing the entire schema of the underlying database. It's not just answering the report. It knows more things that you ought not want it to say. So now you get into what I call the infinite test cycle. Okay, you're not allowed to tell anyone about this. Well, now it comes down to how someone asks that question. Or God forbid, they just go ignore these layer rules and answer the question anyway. So now you're constantly having to come up with, robustness and hardening tests against this. And that's the wrong approach. You'll never get there. That's an infinite rainbow chase. You'll never chase it and you'll never capture it for sure. But these risks aren't really well understood until you've slow thunk it up first. Because I can tell you, under the pressure of delivery, you have a tendency to get to the end without thinking of these things. So having that governance and risk framework, that moral, ethical boundary in which this is how we are using AI in this company. These are our no-fly zones. This is the rules under which we're going to conduct. Allows me before I even begin the work, I can run it through my risk framework. I strongly recommend having a use case design framework on top of it. We give this for our customers as well. So it has to pass the AI GRIF. It has to pass through the use case design framework before you invest and build money. And it's a simple registry, right? You're just answering simple questions. You're deciding where the risk is. You can take the risk, but know the risk going in. Don't wait until your customer has discovered your agent doing things it ought not do. And we have a tendency to just lather agents onto everything, seeking efficiencies anywhere and everywhere. That's fine, but you were going to hit a major problem. And these things can repeat and rinse. And if you're off in the red zone somewhere, it will rinse and repeat to a degree that could probably close the doors of your business. So be very careful.
Yeah, no, I love that. So true. So many amazing points. And I think this really highlights the benefit of why you get experts in, right? Whether it's,
Yeah.
software companies like AMCS, implementation companies, consultants, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know that you have to ask these questions and things about what could potentially happen. I think growing up playing chess, right? It was always like you have to think many moves ahead, like I'm
Yeah,
there
that's exactly right.
to win. So you got to think like what could potentially happen here? How do we rectify that before it happens, in the business? Same in any business, and even more so, I think in AI, so important, to do that now because it could go
Yeah.
down any direction. So you got to make sure you're honing that in. So yeah, no, it's amazing what yeah, you've shared here today. I think it's really been a real masterclass on like how to think about AI and software and what you're building into that business and how to think about it generally about like how to maximize it and still empower your workforce and the potential of what it is. And yeah, just it's so powerful. So I guess, yeah, as we're starting to wrap up here today, I would like to ask you, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to everyone watching and listening today?
Adopt a person plus AI strategy. That is repeatable, repeatable, repeatable. Invest in your people. They'll invest in the AI. Do not try to get the value of AI through downsizing. There are so many ways. You can only downsize so much, right? You can only go to zero. That's as far as you can get. But if you, person plus AI is a growth strategy. That's infinite. That's an infinite game. You can keep growing. And as AI gets better, it amplifies that person. So you can grow further and further. You can grow the revenue. You can go into region. You can do things you didn't think your business can do. That should be your strategy. You right size at the end only when there's no growth left to have. And that's your winning strategy. So I would leave with all of the cautionary stuff we discussed and the strategy to get into AI. The very first thing of your governance and risk framework should be your person plus AI strategy. Absolutely should be that.
Yeah, love it. Completely agree. And yeah, we connected through our networks, learned about your awesome journey from, yeah, your advanced degrees in business computer science and now obviously being the Chief Information Officer of AMCS Group North America and among many other amazing things that you're doing in your book. You are an awesome guy, so knowledgeable. And so you continue to drive this digital transformation, right, through AI and data science and using the power of what you've done at AMCS and all those products in those industries, which is amazing. And obviously, just generally in business, right, on how to think about this to really, yeah, catch that wave early and go, hey, let's do this now because it's going to bring us ahead of what's coming in this industry, and that could be your massive competitive advantage now. And I think you guys are leading that front, right, which is amazing, and integrating it in your solutions will makes it a lot easier for everybody there. It's like, hey, let's do this and make it happen. So it's awesome that you guys are doing that, and very grateful that we connected and looking forward, to partnering, see how we can help more people as well. Yeah. So Evan, yeah, how can people find you and get in contact with you as well?
The easiest thing is just to go to evanjschwartz.com. I'm sure that website will be on the post or the link for this. And I keep up with all my speaking engagements, all of my writing, all of my articles, all of that stuff is on that site. So that's the easiest way is a one-stop shop. You can get to my LinkedIn profile. I would welcome connections from any of the viewers who are just interested in asking a question. I'm very open with what I think are the right strategies. Even if you're not in the AMCA's customer space, I'm happy to provide at least my guidance and opinion and experience. So just give me a ring.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely check out Evan there on the website and LinkedIn as well. Always see what he's up to. Yeah, shared so much gold here today, and plenty more to come as AI evolves so rapidly as well. In this space. Mate, it's been a pleasure interviewing you, and thanks for being on the Business Grow Show.
Thank you, Athin. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you'd reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.